Thank you, Donna, for letting me know that I've been live for 3 minutes with no sound at all. My microphone was accidentally muted. I have just prattled on for about 3 minutes with nobody listening to me. So hello, world. This is Rob from Property Developer Network coming to you for another Facebook Live. My humble apologies for those of you who were sitting there wondering what was happening and playing with your volume buttons. I'm incredibly apologetic for that. So let me talk about everything that I was just repeating a couple of moments ago. Today's topic is the deal funnel. We're going to be talking a little bit about what it is that I guess dictates opportunities going into the deal funnel, what happens within the deal funnel, and then how many opportunities that's going to take to actually create. Now, before we go there, just want to do a little bit of housekeeping. So want to have a huge thank you to Tony Meredith, who actually ran my meetup event in Melbourne yesterday. So kudos to him for doing that on my behalf. It was actually my daughter's 18th birthday. So I was being the responsible adult, staying home and looking after her and all of her friends. So big love out to my darling Amy. So incredibly proud of the person that you've grown up to be, darling. And I know I guess where you're heading in life. Myself and my wife Cecilia could not be anything but proud of you, darling. So thank you very much. Other logistical things to put out there for anyone who is interested in our property development formula program, our 12-month education program. The start date of that is actually in 5 days' time, so the 11th of October. So if anyone is interested at all, it's not too late to join, but I would highly encourage that you need to reach out either today or tomorrow. Otherwise, we're not going to be able to fit you in. So anyone interested in that, please feel free to join us. Otherwise, today's topic is the deal funnel. So as I was saying before, when none of you could hear me, the deal funnel is the thing where you put a whole bunch of properties into the top of the funnel. The funnel is shaped a little bit like this, and through a whole bunch of filtering processes, out the bottom pops a deal. And so when you're an experienced developer, my anecdotal experience tells me that about 100 properties into the top of the funnel will get one property pop out as a deal. Now, that sounds like a lot, but imagine what that's like when you're an inexperienced developer and where you're actually going to make a couple of mistakes along the way. So as you're learning the process, my anecdotal experience from running courses for a number of years is about 300 properties for anybody wanting to put anything into the funnel will get one out. So that's a lot of effort that needs to go into the process. So it's quite important that what goes in is actually dealt with in a very efficient and effective way. And for anyone who knows about my property development formula program, we teach a way to, I guess, shortcut how much time you actually spend in analyzing those properties so that you minimize how much time you actually spend. Now, as it goes in the top of the funnel, there are a number of things that actually stick it into the funnel. As it goes in, each layer, as it pops down, we're going to be putting a little bit of a filter onto it to make sure that we're only letting quality properties go through the funnel. Now, for me, I have a number of layers in that process. So the first one is the site developable at all? There's a number of quality checks that we actually do with regards to the site to determine, is the site developable? That's a whole bunch of things looking at zoning of the property, overlays of the property, constraints, state legislation, local government legislation, et cetera, to actually work out if it's developable. Now, there are a number of properties that will pass that first test. And so the temptation is for many to jump onto that straight away as a deal. The challenge that I will put to you is firstly, about 50% of the sites that you look at will have some form of problem that will typically be something that will make you actually want to throw it away. Assuming it passes that first test, then the next filter that you put onto it is it profitable? And my experience here is that about 90% of the sites that are developable are not profitable, meaning that every real estate agent on earth who tries to sell you a property saying, look at this development potential, who has no idea how to actually run a development site itself, each one of those is trying to get you to buy something with no idea whether or not it's actually going to make money. And your job is to actually make sure that you can identify all the issues, all the challenges on that property, understand the problems that need to be solved, and also the likelihood of the sale of the finished product and what that's actually going to generate, and run feasibilities on that. The challenge that you'll find is that developable sites generally have a number of ways of actually being developable. And whilst there are a ton of strategies out there, so I'm just seeing that Siobhan is saying that she can't hear me still. So can everybody just give me a thumbs up as to whether or not you can actually hear me? That would be greatly appreciated. Just a like or a something, that would be fantastic. Not getting anything. I don't know if I keep talking or not, folks. I don't know if anyone is actually there to hear me. So any likes? Nothing? I'm going to keep talking, and hopefully the delayed response between me talking and you guys responding still allows something to actually occur. Donna's saying that she can hear me now. So thank you, Donna. Appreciate that. Jay is saying I can hear you as well. Perfect. Sorry. Thank you, folks. And my humble apologies for that initial delay right up front. And now the likes are coming. There's always a delay. I love how live is not as live as it actually appears. So thank you. So as I was saying, about 90% of the sites that are developable are not profitable. And so it's very important that you actually understand how to analyze those sites to determine the profitability. But what is interesting in that process is that when you have a look at a site, there are typically more than one way to actually develop it. And whilst there are a ton of strategies out there, so there's subdivisions, there's units, there's townhouses, there's rent per room, there's HMOs, there's positive gearing, there's negative gearing, there's like a ton of strategies out there, renovations, etc. Generally, what you'll find that within each strategy, there are a number of sub-strategies that may mean that the permutations that apply to a site might be, I guess, incredible in number. And by way of example only, I would like to say, if you were doing a 1:2 subdivision, so that's taking one large block of land and just cutting it up into 2 sites, there's probably about 20 different permutations in how you could do that one deal. Meaning, for example, you could knock down the house and sell 2 vacant blocks of land. You may be fortunate the house is in the perfect location, in which case you keep that and you subdivide a vacant block of land off. So you're selling an existing home unrenovated along with a vacant block of land. You may renovate the existing home and sell the vacant block of land. The house may not be in the right location, in which case you may need to slide it, in which case you could sell it in the original condition, sell the vacant land. You could slide it and renovate it and sell the land. You could build on the vacant block of land. You could sell the existing house, sell down, pay down, build on the vacant land. And so you can see by the time you go through all of those different permutations, there's about 20 different ways of actually doing it. So when you're trying to stick a deal into the funnel, you may find that for your particular strategy, that there are a number of those permutations that are not profitable. So the key to being a successful developer is to be able to very quickly in your head, in a short amount of time, go through all of those different permutations as to 1, can it actually be done? And 2, would it actually be profitable? Very, very quickly, so as fast as humanly possible. And I typically try to encourage my guys to actually do that within 10 minutes if they follow my system. And that will then let you determine whether or not it is actually worthwhile actually proceeding with the deal itself. And what you may find is that only 1 or 2 of those permutations may actually make sense. So the person who is going to make the money is the person who is creative enough to see all of the permutations and very, very quickly get to a point where they can actually get to that in a position where they can put an offer in much quicker than, I guess, the next person along the line. So I'm seeing lots of different people giving me feedback on the quality. So can hear me, but now the picture is fuzzy. So not sure what's happening there, folks, but I'm going to keep talking anyway. Hopefully the sound quality will actually pick up. I've got an NBN connection here, so there shouldn't be actually a problem from that perspective. Now, as you go through, the first step is it developable, and in which case, which permutations within that are developable. The second one is, of those permutations that are there, which ones are profitable. At this point, you've kind of dropped 2 layers down into the funnel, and then the third layer would then be, can you actually start to negotiate a deal? And this is where it starts to get tricky, especially when you're starting out in the process. So firstly, you're going to have a lot of nerves. You're not necessarily going to know how to actually deal with the negotiation process. But my encouragement to you is that what you want to try and do is actually find out what is the problem that vendor is trying to solve. So they are selling the property for a reason. And if you can understand the reason and understand the motives for why they are selling, then you can reach into your little toolkit, and with a number of different acquisition strategies, you can then try to apply an acquisition strategy that suits their particular circumstances and equally suits your financial position as to how and where you start. Knowing that a number of you are trying to start in a no money down type situation because you haven't got much money in the piggy bank, there may be a limited number of acquisition strategies that will actually work for you. And if that vendor circumstance does not allow, then you may not be able to get that particular deal. Now, that doesn't mean it's not a deal. It just means that you can't financially service that deal. So when you're starting with limited resources, that's why a number of these don't actually get all the way through the bottom of the funnel. What you can do, though, is you've taken it all the way through. Is it developable and is it profitable? And you understand the terms and finances that person is actually looking for. So whilst you may not acquire it, the opportunity is actually there for you to actually flick it for a finder's fee to somebody else within the network who you know is looking for the exact same kind of deal. So make sure that you don't put in all that work and make no money from the process at all. Next time round, you'll have a little bit more money in the kitty. That will then allow you a little bit more opportunity to take on the next layer of challenges. So I won't go through all of the different acquisition strategies that you've got, but to touch on the fact that you've got an upfront payment, you've got delayed settlement with early access, you've got options contracts, you've got joint ventures, you've got vendor finance, you've got a whole bunch of acquisition models that are actually available to you that may actually let you control the property rather than owning the property. And by controlling the property, it means that you whilst money is required, what you're trying to do is, as much as humanly possible, defer the funding of that to the tail end of the project, or alternatively get other people's money in to actually help you out. So that's within the funnel itself. Now, how and what do you do to actually put properties into the funnel? Now, for any of you who've been following me for quite some time, you'll know that I consistently say you should have one strategy and become a strategy expert. That's going to allow you to be able to assess your opportunities and determine that developability part very, very quickly. So I guess that's the first part. The next part is that I encourage you to have one council. So that's one set of rules to determine whether or not it's actually developable. So that very quickly allows you to make those determinations fast rather than having to learn many, many, many sets of rules. So even if you are consistent with one development strategy, if you are doing that across multiple councils, you'll find that there's actually multiple rules, multiple ways of actually doing that, multiple terminologies, all that sort of thing. Now, there are 537 different councils Australia-wide, which means that for any one particular strategy, there's 537 different sets of rules that are actually going to apply. So I highly encourage you to minimize your effort in order to get that first part of the funnel up front and stick to one strategy, one council. So that's the first part to that. If you then start to become an area expert, again, as I encourage, then the is it profitable part you're going to be able to do quite quickly as well. And the reason for that is you're going to understand your areas, you're going to understand which end of the street is more expensive than the other end of the street and why. You're going to know on which street what zoning applies. You're going to understand the criteria that actually applies there. You're going to know what the demographics are of the area. You're going to know what the supply and demand is of the area. So your ability to assess the site becomes quicker and quicker and quicker the more that you actually start to become an expert in the process. So that's the, I guess, the funnel itself. Now, what goes into the funnel? So if you truly are a area expert, and if you truly are a subject expert, then you're going to start to get to a point where you actually start to analyze every single property within those areas that you are an expert in, and you're going to know and identify right up front. Let's just say hypothetically that your particular suburb that you're going to become an area expert in happens to have about 300 properties that have the right zoning and right land size that may fit your particular strategy. Now, if you follow my methodology, you put about 10 minutes into each and every one of those properties to quickly work out whether or not that development capability is actually there. And you may very quickly drop that 300 figure down to about 120 or 150, which means that you now have a hot list of properties that have passed the first layer of the test. Now, the second layer of the test, which is it developable? The second layer of the test, and when we're looking at 300 odd properties, if you're putting 10 minutes into that, I'm just going to do some quick math on that. So 300 times 10 minutes divided by 60, you're looking at 50 hours. Now, depending upon how many hours that you put into this a week, that might be 4 or 5 weeks to actually become an area expert, which is not as scary as it sounds. A lot of you, I guess, are putting lots of time in, but the time is not necessarily quality time. So what we're trying to encourage you to do is, if you have a process, if you have a methodology, if you can do that in a rinse and repeat type basis, then it's going to be very, very good for you. Now, I'm seeing a number of likes and the likes that come through. So thank you very much for that, folks. I do encourage questions as we go. So if you do have any questions on this process as I'm going, there is a little bit of a lag between me talking and your question coming through. So please make sure that you ask those questions, and I'm more than happy to do that. So let's talk about how we put stuff into the funnel. So you've gone through and started to analyze those properties, and you've now got yourself a hot list. So by building yourself that hot list, what you can now do is start to farm that hot list. And the more that you farm the hot list, the more likely it is that you're actually going to get opportunities. Now, the reality is that most properties turn over approximately once every 7 to 10 years. So if you've got 100 properties in your hot list, then on average, about 10 of those are going to hit the market in any one calendar year. So what we're trying to do is get you to a point where you're improving your chances of getting those 10, and also starting to attract the people that might be thinking of selling in year 2 or year 3, so that you improve that from 10 to maybe 20 or 30-ish that are interested in actually talking to you with regards to selling to you. So how we do that, there are a number of strategies that actually would apply. So firstly, I would encourage you to start to letterbox drop. Okay, so you've identified the target properties, and now, like a sniper, you can actually send targeted letters to individual properties that you know are developable, and you know from your previous analysis that the suburb that you're actually becoming an expert in has a high likelihood of profitability. So the chances are, if that person is interested in selling, and they're interested in selling at market price, there's a very good chance that it's a profitable deal. Now, there's no guarantee at this point in time, but we're trying to improve our chances of that. Now, what I see in a lot of other courses out there is they would get you to send the letters out to every property in the area, which means that you're sending letters out to unqualified sites, so ones that are not developable. So when a phone call comes in with somebody who responds to one of your letters, you don't know if it truly is a property that you're interested in, or if it's one of the duds that might have fallen out. So one, it wastes a lot of time on your behalf, and two, it wastes a lot of money. So if you think that a letter now is $1.05 or $1.10 to send a letter out, and if you're sending 300 letters out, that's $300 every single time you hit send on the post. So instead, what you could do is on the properties that you've now done a sniper assessment on, you can now send some targeted letters out, and you now, for the same budget, you could send a series of letters over multiple months to those properties, and for the exact same amount of spend. which means that you can start to educate those people as to how and why, and remind them that you are the person that is actually looking into that property. You could do a whole bunch of things on your letters, from encouraging them to sell off market and avoid agents' fees, to letting them know that if they can do creative terms, you can pay a little bit over market, to a number of things along those lines. But no matter how you send a letter out, the one letter, and I get this question all the time, the one letter that you send, I guarantee, is going to be liked by 50% of the people out there and not liked by the other 50%. So if you send a letter that says, hey, I'm interested in buying large blocks of land, then you'll get interested people who are looking to sell at any point in time. But anyone who thinks that their site is developable already will likely not be interested, because they'll think that you're not a developer, and they won't be interested in your letter. Equally, if you say, hey, I'm a developer, and you send it out, then you're probably going to upset the first round of people and you'll interest the second one. So instead, what I propose is that you use those series of letters to start to build a little bit of a story behind who you are and what you're about. So the first round of letters might be just very general in nature, to say, hey, I'm looking at larger properties in the area, very interested in your property, it's come to mind, I'm not an agent, hey, would you mind giving me a call? Now, that might interest the first 50%, but not interest the second 50%. So that's fantastic, but I guess you've only hit 50% of your market. So the second letter that you send out might be a little bit more, I guess, indicating that you might be a developer, or you might be able to pay over rates. And then the third letter that you send out would then say, hey, I'm a fully fledged developer. So you've basically been able to hit all three areas of your target market with the exact same budget as you would have spent if you just blanket bombed the entire area, which means that, one, they're getting to see your name quite regularly, so you're going to become familiar. Two, you're going to start to build a little bit of a rapport. And three, you're going to attract all of the people at both ends of the market. So the people who like developers and the people who don't like developers. And so it's a reasonable tactic to actually do that. What that then starts to do is encourage people who are both looking to sell and also thinking of selling in a couple of years' time to actually have you reasonably high on their agenda. So that's one way to do that. So that's the one way to put stuff into the funnel. The other thing that I would say is use the fact that you have agents in your area to your advantage. So if you've got 100 or 120 properties on your hit list, why would you not approach every single agent in the area and say, hey, I've got a hit list of properties. Would you like to look at these 5 properties for me? And you go to the next agent and give them a different 5. And you let the agents scurry out and do the legwork for you. And they will go, because they know that you're an interested buyer, they know that you've got budget, they know that you're ready to do stuff, and they will go do the door knocking for you. So that's what that then tells you, is whether or not you've actually got a motivated agent on board, and it's a good way to actually test their capabilities. Now, not every agent is actually going to be good at that, so that's going to be a great way to actually work that out. And if an agent comes back and they were no good, then just take those 5 properties and give that back to one of the other agents that were good. And then you'll be able to start to I guess, carpet bomb that area. The other thing that you would obviously still do is keep an eye on the fact that you've got alerts on Domain and realestate.com.au, for example, and you would make sure that those alerts are coming through for your area. And when it does, because you've already done that first round test, what you're then going to do is you're going to have a look at the alert that's come through and say, hey, is this on my list? And if it's not, then that's the end of your assessment, because you've already put it through that first round filter. If it is on your list, now you're going to go to the second layer of the list and say, well, is it actually likely to be profitable now? And that's where you're going to put a lot more effort into the process. Now, for me, layer 1 is about a 10-minute check, and layer 2 is about a 2-hour check. And at that point, I'm in a position, because I'm an area expert, I know that I'm willing to actually start negotiations at that point. The other way that you get more opportunities into your funnel is make sure that you're dealing with consultants who are experts in your area. So your surveyors, your town planners, your civil engineers, all those sorts of things. And if they know what your expertise is, and they know what your expertise area is, and you let them know that you're looking for opportunities and that you're happy to pay spotters fees for everything that comes through, then those consultants are likely to give you opportunities where they come across them themselves, remembering they're looking at properties all the time, every single time. And so it's going to be one of those things where, you know, if you are top on their agenda and if they know that you're happy to pay a finder's fee, then they're going to send it to you before they send it to the next guy down the food chain. So that's always good. Rachel's got a question. Not clear re door knocking. What if the occupants are tenants? So good question, Rachel. You can actually determine that typically by looking at either RP data or Price Finder. That will then let you know whether or not the owner of the property actually also resides at the property. You're also going to be able to see through your sales history whether or not the property has ever been for rent before as well. So that's going to give you a good indication as to whether or not it's a rental or not. And if it is a rental, then it's typically the history will actually tell you who the rental agency is. And so you could actually approach the rental agency and get them to approach the owners on your behalf. And I've done that numerous times and been quite successful in the process. So hopefully that answers your question. Yes, I wouldn't just go door knocking randomly. Make sure you do that homework up front. But excellent question, glad you asked. Rachel's also got another question. Sorry, who are the consultants? Do you mean agents? I missed the start of the topic. No, what I'm talking about here, Rachel, is your town planners, your civil engineers, your architects, all those sorts of things on your particular strategy in your particular area. They're the consultants that I'm talking about. And the topic is the deal funnel. Rachel's got another comment. Okay, so you wouldn't give the agents addresses for tenants. No, I wouldn't do that, Rachel. I would make sure that I would approach the agency that is actually managing the property and get them to approach the owners themselves. I wouldn't give that through the tenants at all. So otherwise it probably won't get through. So other ways to actually put things through your deal funnel is talking to your real estate agents and actually building a rapport with them. So part of the process in giving them the 5 properties to actually go out and do the door knocking on is actually building that rapport with them. So you want to make sure that you're constantly checking up with them. You're giving them very clear instructions as to exactly the kind of properties that you're looking for, the size, the zoning, etc., the budget that you're looking for, the terms that you're looking for, so that they can actually bring you opportunities on a regular basis. Now, to build any relationship with anyone, you typically need anywhere between 3 and 5 interactions with someone for them to even remember who you are. So what you're looking for is 3 to 5 reasons to actually call them on a regular basis. So typically what I would do when I'm trying to build a rapport with an agent is I would give them a phone call the first time round and say, hi, you're new in the area, or I'm new in the area, whichever the case may be, or I'm starting to look in this area. These are the qualities of a property that I'm actually looking for. You can list the zoning, you can list your land size criteria, you can list your price points and the terms that you're actually looking for, and just say, would it be okay if I send you an email that documents this so that you know that I'm on your list? So the first one is the actual phone call. The second contact is the email. And so that's 2 contacts you've had with them straight away. And then about a week later, I give them a call and say, hey, just checking you've got my email. Wanted to go through to see if you actually had any questions on that. So now all of a sudden you've manufactured 3 reasons to actually have a conversation with someone, all on the same topic. So they know that you're clear, they know that you're serious, they know exactly what you're looking for. Now I would now put them onto a register to follow up every couple of weeks to just say, hey, you know what my criteria is, just seeing if you've got anything else on the list. So, and make sure that you're, if you then give them opportunities for them to actually go door knocking for you, that's a 4th reason. And I guess you're just trying to build that rapport. So over and over, as many times as humanly possible, try to interact with them. I guess that's from a sales agent's point of view, but I would also say that there are buyer's agents that you want to start to engage with. So a buyer's agent will typically find properties for you, but they will find that for a fee. So sometimes it's an upfront engagement fee. sometimes it's a tail end success fee, and sometimes it's a combination of both. But if you've got more people looking at opportunities for you, that's more opportunities actually going to come into the funnel. So I always try to make sure that I don't exclude buyers agents. Even if I am experienced in finding my own sites, I'm more than happy to pay a finder's fee and have regularly paid finder's fees for people who bring me sites that are both developable and profitable. So make sure you do that. One of the other ones that it's going to sound really strange, but serendipity. Now, serendipity is by circumstance, by chance, that you have conversations with people that let them know that you are actually looking for property. Now, what I find many people are afraid to do in the very early stages when they're learning to become a property developer, they're very afraid to actually say, hey, I'm a property developer. Instead, they hide behind it because they're afraid what people might actually think. Now, for me, I'd encourage you to be the other way around. So when you're at work and you're talking to someone over lunch or at the water cooler and they say, hey, what did you do on the weekend? Let them know, I spent all weekend looking at properties. I am studying to become a property developer. I found what I think is going to be a deal. It ended up being a dud. But actually have that conversation. Because when you're starting to have conversations about property, then what do you know? People will start to talk to you about property. And that's when you're going to find out that that person might not necessarily be selling a property, but their next door neighbor is. And he was talking to his neighbor and they think it's developable and they're really looking for someone to sell it to who is a developer, or they're looking at how do we maximize the return. And you'd be surprised at how many conversations actually happen like that over barbecues, over coffee, just because of the fact that people actually know that you are in the business of property and property development. So make sure you put yourself into a situation where people actually know what you do. I can't remember who the quote actually comes from, but basically it's the harder I work, the luckier I get. And you're working hard to actually let people know that you're actually in this game as a business. So that's pretty much the property funnel, folks. As I said right at the very start, today is going to be a short session given that it's the NRL Grand Final day. Myself actually being a rugby tragic myself, I'm going to sit back on the couch and yell at the TV for a few hours. And no doubt there's a few of you who have not turned up today specifically because you want to watch the rugby as well. I also know, seeing some of the faces out there, that the people that are here today are typically not those rugby fans, and they're instead the property fans. So thank you very much, folks. I really appreciate you being here today. I will be back again next Sunday. Now, next Sunday, I am it's actually the end of our first part of our 3-day course, our Property Development Formula program. So we'll have just finished day 3 of the program. And so I may be a little bit hoarse from talking for 3 days straight, but we will still be doing a Facebook Live. Instead of our usual 5 o'clock, it's actually going to be at 6 o'clock in the afternoon on Sunday next weekend. So until then, folks, let me just see if there's any last questions. No, there's not. So until then, folks, thank you very much, and I will see you next week. Bye for now.